welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I am your host, Jessica, and I'm welcoming back Nick Medina, who has been on a streak lately, writing just some really interesting horror. And it's like, it's what's interesting about it is every time I pick up one of your books, it's a standalone, but there's these threads that interconnect all of them, and it's always sort of interesting to me as a reader to be like, oh, okay, yes, I remember, this, and it's interesting to get a backstory on it. But you do a really good job of getting the reader invested in the landscape, and the characters, and then, it's good to read alone. You can read it on its own, but then it always circles back to something else. The Whistler is probably my favorite one yet. And I, I'm curious, how you decided to tell this particular story at this particular time.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I've had a really good time getting able to being able to create this world where all of these characters exist and where we have all these different stories going on. You're right. I wrote them so in a way that they can stand on their own and they're independent, but they also have all these connections that link them together. And when it comes to the Whistler, I wanted to write this one because, well, for a few reasons. First off, I had left something unanswered in my previous book, Indian Burial Ground, and my editor had asked me, "Do you have the answer to this?" And at the time, I didn't, but I wanted to figure it out. I wanted to, dive back in and really see what was going on here. Also, I had been working on another manuscript at the time. I was trying to flesh it out and figure out the storyline for that one. And there was a character in there that just really kind of took hold. And he was originally just supposed to be part of an ensemble cast. He wasn't supposed to be the main character. But as I was thinking about what my editor had asked me, um, and as I was working on that book, he just kind of took precedence and he came forward, and suddenly I saw the link between him and Indian Burial Ground. And to me, it just made sense to kind of complete that story. I wanted to finish what I had started in Indian Burial Ground. And of course, I always like to address things that are going on in Native and Indigenous communities because my books do take place on a fictional Native American reservation. So it gave me another opportunity to address some things that I thought were pretty important at this point in time, specifically when it comes to healthcare and suicide, which is something I'd addressed in Indian Burial Ground as well. So it just gave me this opportunity to keep focusing on things that are important to me, important to Indigenous communities, and to hopefully give everyone a really scary story at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking as you were just saying that, I fully expected for you to be like, oh, of course I have the answer to that, because that is a very clever way to keep getting published, right?
Yeah,
Just like leave your editor with these questions and be like, oh, well, if you want to know more, you're just gonna have to contract me for
right.
another book.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah, it was, it is fun, and it's fun to listen to writers who, they'll talk about a story and they'll talk about their ensemble cast, but it always seems like the ensemble cast, there's always somebody who's calling out to the writer and being like,
yeah.
I'm here and there's a reason I'm here. So what for you, brought out Henry's story? What for you led you to the path that brought the Whistler out?
Well, there are a few things. So Henry is this character who needs and wants a lot of attention. He started off as a guitarist in a rock band, and uh, as the story goes, he wasn't able to continue performing because of the pandemic. Everything got shut down, so he wasn't able to perform in these live places anymore. So he had to find something else to do with his time. And so, since this was a horror story, and I wanted to touch on elements of spirits and ghosts and things that come back to haunt us and things that will continue perhaps to haunt us. It just made sense to make him this ghost hunter. And so he becomes a ghost hunter who is able to share his videos online and gain an audience that way. And, he's growing this following, and he's becoming more successful. And the more successful he becomes, the more attention he wants and craves. And it just keeps driving him to do more and more and more. And he's pushing and pushing and pushing until he takes things a little too far, and he ultimately ends up suffering a pretty devastating injury that leaves him paralyzed from the chest down. And I think that's where a lot of the horror comes from. I wanted to look at things like body horror. So it's not just, sometimes we see body horror where, maybe there's like mushrooms growing out of your skin or some sort of fungus growing off of a human. But I wanted to focus on the real human side of it. And, Henry seeing his body transform as his muscles atrophy, and he's not able to do the things that he was able to do before. And so he has a whole lot of stuff to deal with, both in the real world and the real things that he's experiencing. And then also these questions about, is he being haunted? Is there a supernatural entity that's maybe connected itself to him because of some things that he's done? So it was just a really fun exploration for me to be able to dive in and take a look at things from different points of view. And I'm hoping that it will, like I said, give people a good scare, but I also hope it will open eyes when it comes to, how people living with paralysis are treated in the United States. Also, how even people with paralysis think of themselves, because since they are so often undervalued or disregarded, they sometimes have those feelings about themselves as well. So it just felt like a lot of stuff that I was able to tackle in this book. And I'm really happy with how it came out, but I'm also looking forward to seeing how other people react to it as well.
I think for me, there was a lot here and, a lot of twists. I want to talk about the lore behind the Whistler in a second, but the stark differences between the before and after for Henry, and how, he was able to relate to Jade and just the people around him as an able-bodied person. And then, you know, the after just kind of it is very difficult, even just as a person who's aging, to not be able to do certain things. But to have like all of that sort of just abruptly gone, and you have to adapt. It's a your loss of your body function, the loss of parts of you, and learning to live through it, which is difficult. It was very a very emotional, physical experience reading through. How did you research that? Did you talk to a lot of people who'd been through it, or do you have family who's been through it?
Yeah, I was able to talk with someone I know. His name is Peter. And Peter, when he was in college, was going on a road trip with friends, and he was driving at night, and he fell asleep at the wheel. And the SUV that they were driving in flipped a couple of times, and he suffered an injury because part of the vehicle had crushed his neck. It hit him from behind. And since then, it's been over a decade now. He's been a wheelchair user, and he is a quadriplegic, or excuse me, he lives with quadriplegia. I'm still learning the proper terms and ways to phrase things. So the preferred way is to say a person with instead of saying, he or she is a quadriplegic. So a person with quadriplegia. So he's been living with this for over a decade now, and he was very open and he was very helpful, and he allowed me to ask any question that I had about what it was like to suffer an injury like that and what it's been like to go through the recovery process and to go through the grieving and the loss and coming to terms with not being able to do things that you were able to do before. It changed his life completely, of course. Everything from what he was studying in school, because now he can no longer really do the things that he had wanted to do with his life. He had to find a new path, and he had to find a new major that would allow him to at least pursue some of his goals and find new interests and new passions. But he also answered questions that, were very personal when it comes to things like, how do you go to the washroom? What is it like to be intimate with a partner? So he gave me so much insight that I was able to use and put into Henry, because the goal was to create a character that was as authentic as possible. I didn't want to gloss over anything, didn't want to sugarcoat anything. And that was one of the things that I had talked about with Peter. I asked him, what is your take on people with paralysis in media or in TV shows, films? And one of his complaints was that often these characters are portrayed as being able to overcome their paralysis, whether it be through superpowers or some sort of magic or something that just really allows them to go back to living what would be a life without paralysis. And that's obviously something that people with paralysis aren't able to do. So we wanted to make sure that we were really reflecting life as it is, and to give a voice or at least shine a light on uh, what's going on with people who do go through this every day. But something else that was really helpful was just tuning into channels online, because there are so many people with paralysis who document everything that they go through, and they're so open about it, and they're very generous, and they share and they educate, and it's not something that's easy to watch. I spent months doing this research, and I would be watching all of these videos, and most of them are, or a lot of them, I should say, are produced by young people, teenagers, young adults, and you see the horror that they've gone through, because a lot of these accidents or these injuries occur, of course, in a split second from one little decision. It might have been, a decision to dive into water headfirst without really knowing what was under that water, or a decision to go skateboarding without your helmet that day. Or, there was one girl who had tied a hammock to a structure, and she didn't realize that the structure wasn't sound. And so these bricks came down upon her. And just like that, these young people are forever changed. They're not going to be able to do things that they might have dreamed about doing before. And it's hard to watch that and to see their struggles, day after day after day. To take that in was really tough, but it's also uplifting, because you can see, the will that they have, the will to find new ways and to overcome as much as they can, and to also celebrate with them when they do achieve something that they thought they might never achieve. Uh, Additionally, another thing that I was able to do, and this comes back to Peter. Peter invited me to attend an expo, the Abilities Expo here in Chicago. And at that expo, I was able to see all kinds of different technology and tools that are being developed for people with paralysis. And again, that was something that was tough to see, because there were probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people there who were, who are living with challenges that they wouldn't have chosen to live with. But again, they're doing the best that they can. They're finding new ways. They're embracing technology, and that is really awesome to see.
So the Whistler itself, with many of your or all of your books, there is some lore, some indigenous, Native American, or superstition or legend that comes with it. Can you talk a little bit about whistling after dark?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we got a couple, or I have a couple different aspects of native folklore weaved into this book. But maybe the most notable one, of course, is about never whistling at night. This is a superstition that is found in a number of native cultures. It's also found worldwide, which I find pretty interesting. You can find it in um, Asian cultures, European cultures. Uh, and the fascinating thing about it to me is that the superstition is basically exactly the same no matter where you go. The only difference, the major difference, is that, um, or is what kind of consequence you might face as a result of whistling at night. So, when it comes to many native and indigenous cultures, the belief is that if you whistle at night, you could be attracting um, evil entities, bad spirits, the wandering dead, maybe some types of witches or skinwalkers. You might be attracting those things to you. And like most folklore, it basically serves as a warning or a cautionary tale about the dangers of night. So you don't want to go out at night and try and whistle, which will basically disturb the peace. And when you disturb the peace, bad things might happen to you. So I wanted to explore that. I thought it was a really interesting superstition, and it was also a really fun one to get to play around with. And like I said, I was able to pair it with some other native folklore, specifically about two-faced creatures. Because in a number of native cultures as well, you'll find these different two-faced creatures where when you face them head on, you'll see a normal face, but if you see them from the back, you might see this horrible and monstrous face that perhaps wants to eat you. And some say that if you see that face, you might drop dead. Other cultures say that you might be paralyzed, and then that creature might come back and claim you, or again eat you. And there are different versions of this two face. Some of them are in the form of women who perhaps will inspire night terrors. Others have these sharp bones that protrude from their elbows. So when you see them from behind, they can use those sharp bones as blades and kill you. So it was a lot of fun to pair the Two Face with the whistle. I don't want to give away too much, but if you jump in and explore it, you'll hopefully see why it's so or why it's not advisable to whistle at night.
So you've been kind of on a roll with these books, like year after year, because I think is this the third time we're talking now?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
third row.
yeah, and I'm curious, do you have a place to go from here?
I do. Actually, well, I have a book coming out next year, but it's not related to the first three. So I'm able to take a step away next year and do something a little bit different. But you will find some native elements in that book as well. But I did actually just finish a manuscript that is intended to be the follow-up to The Whistler, because as you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of connections between these books, and I do like to leave some things unanswered so that I can then tackle it later on. So I did leave a couple things a little bit blurry in The Whistler, and I was able to provide some answers to those unanswered questions in the manuscript that I just finished. Um, I don't want to say too much about it because I haven't even presented it to my publisher yet. I didn't even tell my editor that I was writing it. I just went ahead and did it. But I think it came out really well. I'm really excited about it. Not sure when it'll come out, but maybe in a couple of years, maybe 27.
Awesome. Yeah, you're leaving those breadcrumbs and hooking them and then being like, "Hey, you had a question about that. I'll answer it."
Got to come back for more. Yeah, got to keep people wondering.
Thank you so much, Nick Medina. Check out The Whistler. It is available now. Perfect for your spooky season, which to me is literally all the time. I like at this point, I'm just eating up all things creepy and ghost stories. And actually, that's a good question that I meant to ask you. Do you believe in ghosts yourself?
You know, I really want to, and I try to, but I still don't have that evidence that I need. I still don't have enough to really convince me that yes, there is some sort of afterlife, or that these spirits and entities exist. I seek it out. I try to find it, but anytime I find something that might be a bit suspicious, or something that might hint at the existence of ghosts, I can also find ways to explain it. So I'm still not quite there, but yeah, it's been something I've chased my entire life pretty much. Ever since I was a little kid, I've been pretty obsessed with ghosts. And, I grew up in a family that owned and operated a funeral home since the 1950s. And so there were a lot of ghost stories in my family. And, it's something that my family still does. We share these ghost stories, and we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. But yeah, I still don't have what I need to make myself a full believer.
Fair. I think you and I are probably very similar in that way. I'm an open-minded skeptic.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But the skeptic part always
there's always the what if. Well, what about this? Or there's always another explanation. So
yeah, there's always like you said, like just not enough for there not to be some sort of scientific explanation.
And I wonder if you just have to make the decision to believe sometimes. I think
that's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah.
I meet so many people who are so convinced, and then I'll ask them, well, what's convinced them? And they'll tell me things that I can kind of pick apart, but they still want to believe. So I actually have the X-Files poster right here in front of me in my office. I want to believe, and that's kind of been my motto for a very long time. I want to believe, I just can't yet.
Thank you, Nick Medina. Like I said, check out The Whistler, and we'll see you hopefully next year.
Yeah, 2026. The next book comes out in November. So yeah, I hope to see you once again.
We are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.